Hey everybody, my name is Miljan and I am a project manager at Idea Booth. Idea Booth is an agency in Chicago, Illinois. We're a digital marketing agency, and the video today that we're going to be doing is showing you how to scope out and price your projects. This is a big topic at any agency that you go to, and people always have concerns doing it. People do it differently at different agencies, but I'm going to show you kind of a baseline of how you can do it and implement this in your everyday project plans, whether you're a project manager, whether you're an account manager. It doesn't really matter, because this really applies to everybody, because everybody is involved in scoping out the project and determining what the timeline is going to be, and all those things kind of play in together. So I'm going to first talk a little bit about it, and then I'm going to show you actually how to do a sample project plan. So like I said, the title of today's video is how to price out your project plan. So let's write that out here. How to price out your projects. All right. So the first thing about pricing out projects that you have to know is that this is traditionally and should be a project management task as far as leading the actual execution of pricing out a project. So I'm just going to write that up here as the main bullet point. This is a project manager task. So the rest of the team is going to be involved in reviewing and approving it. As far as the tasks go, the timing goes, the timeline, and the hours, which will ultimately all lead up to what the price is going to be. But at its core, it's a project manager task, but everybody on the team, it's important for them to know how the project manager is going to do this, because it gives them that transparency and insight and makes them feel a part of the actual process, instead of giving someone a project plan and timeline and saying, here's what you're doing. They feel like they've been involved in the process. So even though you might not be a project manager, it's still really important for you to watch this. So what are we going to do as project managers to figure out what the price is of a project? Well, the first thing that we need to have is the requirements from the client. So we want to know exactly what they are looking to do. So this involves, how many rounds of revisions do they want? If it's a design, or if it's a website, if it's a article that you guys are writing, if it's photography, all those things are going to need different types of requirements and rounds of revisions depending on how in-depth they want it to be. So as project managers, it's our responsibility to make sure that we get all of the correct requirements from a client, and we can use our team for help for that, depending on what the client wants. If the client wants a new website or a new web page, we're obviously going to be talking to our designers and our developers. If the client wants a photography session, we're going to be talking to our photographer to try to understand what type of questions you need to ask to fully get the full requirements so that we can price it out properly. So once we do that, we go into detail. And one of the most important things to do is really to write out every single task of the project. And we're going to get to that in just a second here, and we're going to actually show it to you on a computer how we do it. But being able to get down to every level of detail allows you to do a number of things. One, it allows you to put together a task list. And why the task list is important is because it gives everybody transparency to see exactly what things are going to get done as part of the project. The other thing it allows you to do is to actually populate a statement of work. So why that's important is because your statement of work is going to be your guiding light as far as what are the requirements in the project. The statement of work is going to include everything that is in the task list as far as deliverables go. And because the task list is going to be reviewed and approved by everybody on the team who's executing the project, that will mean you have a flawless statement of work. In addition to that, you know how clients are. They always want to save the most money on the projects and get the best amount of work. Good on them. But by putting together a detailed task list and having everybody in the team who's going to be participating in the project review it, we are able to give clients exact information and detail when they ask, oh, well, why is it going to take so long for you to, I'm just asking for one page of copy to be written. Well, okay, the copy needs to be written, it needs to be reviewed internally by editors, and if you want it SEO optimized, or SEO team has to look at it, so depending on what the project is, you can start getting into that level of detail and have that ammunition to talk back to the client when they're trying to push back and have concerns over pricing for a project. In addition to that, not only your clients, but also your internal stakeholders, maybe people who are the presidents, the vice presidents of the company who are involved in reviewing and approving statements of work, they're gonna wanna know that level of detail as well. So, just really getting a detailed task list, which we're gonna show you here in a sec, is really important to then leading to the statement of work. And then of course the timeline comes from that as well, because if you know exactly what you're doing, and everybody who is doing the different tasks can look at their own individual tasks and tell you, here's how long it's going to take me, you have a timeline. So really, requirements, task list, writing out the statement of work, and doing the timeline from those two things, that's kind of the process. So as I mentioned, it's really important for everybody in the team to be involved in this whole process. You want your team reviewing the task list, you want your team reviewing the statement of work, you want your team giving input and approval on the timeline, because you really want to be on the good side of the team that's working on you, whether it's the designers, photographers, copywriters. None of them like to have a project thrown on them. They want to be involved in this process, and as a project manager, it's your job to get this process started and give them an initial project plan and timeline and scope of work, and then have them review and approve it so that you've done 50, 60, 70% of the work for them, and they can just kind of tweak it for you to make it 100% accurate so that when it goes to the client, it's in a perfect state to be approved and signed off on. And it's really important when you're putting together this task list to think about all the small things that go in a project. Again, I'm just going to use an example of if a client asks you to design a new web page for them. Well, it's not just about, okay, the designer's going to design it, it's going to take them, X amount of hours, 5 or 10 hours to design it. Developer just needs to develop it, and they need another 10, 15 hours, and then we just need to launch it. That's really not what it's about, because there's going to be an internal kickoff. There's going to be weekly status calls, both with the client and internal meetings. There's going to be review sessions internally before a client sees a deliverable. So all these things need to be included in a project plan, and that's the job of the project manager to do that. So once you have all of these things and you have the task list and you have the timeline, then the team can start putting hours to every single task that they're doing. And that's really where the main point of this video comes into play. It's the pricing. So we have a section of a project plan that we're going to show you in a second here. But for example, you have a task, and then you need to be able to be aware of everyone who is involved in that task. So is it, you're obviously going to have project manager involved in almost everything, as well as if you're a big enough agency, sometimes you have a project manager and an account manager. So their hours are going to have to be accounted for. And then whoever is executing on the team as well. So every task is going to need a different set of hours for it that will ultimately lead to the pricing. So let's take a look at what a sample project plan looks like and make sense of all of this into an actual sample project plan. So here's a sample project plan outline, very basic, just a template. For the purposes of this video, we're going to be using Google Sheets. At our office, our project managers and account managers use Smart Sheets, which is a different tool that's we don't only use it for pricing, but we also use it for project planning. But because this video is specific to just pricing, we're going to be just using Google Sheets to show you how we would do that. So what we have here is the very first thing, as we mentioned in the beginning part of the video, is we just really need to know what the scope of the project is first before we can determine what the actual tasks and requirements are going to be. So if a client comes to us and says, oh, we'd like one web page and we want it to be SEO optimized. Okay, well, as a project manager, you're obviously going to want to have some questions. You're going to say, okay, do you need us to design it, to develop it? What are you looking for? And they'll say something like, oh, we just need a design. We have our own in-house development team. So as part of the scope, you'll want to write we just want to be descriptive of one web page design. And then, you obviously just figure out if they want mobile and desktop. Everything we do is mobile, desktop, and tablet designs, especially in today's day and age. So that's a given, but just wanted to call that out anyway. And then you'll obviously ask them, do you want us or to write the copy, or will someone on your team be writing the copy? So let's just say for this instance, the client has asked us to do copy. So we're going to include copywriting in the scope. Now this section here is just very basic. The statement of work is going to be much longer. for this type of project, maybe a page or two, a couple pages. For larger projects, it'll be longer, but this is a pretty basic project. So here's actually where we can actually start writing out the tasks, and I'm going to show you, how as a project manager you really have to think through all of the different tasks in order to get the correct pricing for what it's going to cost. So one of the things that you always want to have is an internal kickoff meeting, and this is a meeting to get everybody who's going to be executing on the project to be in one room to understand what the project is, what the requirements are, what the timeline is going to be, and all of those things. And right here is actually where you can start off by writing out over here in this section of the project who's going to be involved. So if we know we're going to be designing, we're going to need to have it SEO optimized, we're going to be doing copywriting, we know at least 3 roles are going to be involved there. And in addition to that, you have a project manager and an account manager. So here I'm just going to start writing out the roles. So project manager, we're going to do account manager, and then we're going to do designer. That's the person who's going to be designing the site. We're going to have an SEO person, so we're going to write SEO, and then we're going to write copywriter. And then that way you'll see how those play out in a sec, where we want to be able to outline exactly how many hours everybody uses as part of each task and give us a really accurate description. So internal kickoff, we're going to say, let's just say it's a half-hour meeting, so we're going to put 0.5, and that's just going to be 0.5 across the board. So right there you can already see, if you want, you can also do totals, just so you can see totals by task. Do it like that, just some simple formatting here. And you can get that to go down all the way, just so it's already there. All right. So we have our internal kickoffs, and then what are we going to do for that? We're going to go straight into design, and then this is where it really becomes the job of the project manager to start thinking about what is going to be actually need to take place as far as all the tasks go. So once you design it, we're not going to go straight into the client review. We're going to have an internal review where the internal team's going to take a look at it. We're going to have internal edits. And then once we do that, we're going to have to make sure that it's SEO optimized. So our writer's going to have to write the copy for it. And then I'm going to put copywriting, not copyright. And then our SEO team is going to want to check that copy to make sure it's SEO optimized based on the goals for the client. So we're going to put an SEO check there. And then, SEO is probably going to have some feedback for our copywriter to make edits. So the copywriting edits. And then it's finally when we're in a position to do a client review, so client presentation. So that's all as part of the first round of deliverables. So as you can see, it's not as simple as just ballparking, oh, you're just going to design it, you're going to write it, and then we're just going to send it to the client. There's really all these little intermediate steps that need to be planned out. And then of course you go in here and you have to start planning for all these things as far as hours go, which is ultimately going to lead us to the pricing portion of it. So design, again, as a project manager, you're first going to put this whole thing together, but then you're going to have the different people on your team actually go in here and review the tasks that have hours associated to their role. So a designer might take 4 hours to design, and of course if it's a design role, no one's really going to have much input. Maybe if they have someone overseeing them, you might put a senior designer or a creative director to review it, but for the instances of this project plan, we're not going to. Maybe the account manager will review it, so we'll give them a half an hour, no hours for the project plan. Internal review, this is usually everybody, maybe not the project manager. We just give them half an hour to review, including the designer to present. SEO and copywriters want to see it because they're obviously going to be putting the copy in there and reviewing it. And then any feedback that comes from internal, the designer is going to want to make changes, so maybe let's just give them an hour, 0 for everybody else. And then now they've made the changes and the copywriter has the final design so they can put copies towards again. So now the copywriter has some hours. Again, these are just random numbers. You'll have your own team based on what the requirements and what the actual page is. Put hours in there, and then SEO will want to do a check. They're going to need 2 hours to check the page, and so on. Designer's not going to need anything yet. Project manager's not involved. And then the copywriting edits, then they've got another, let's just say half an hour to an hour. And now you can start to see how these things are going. Then when the client presentation is happening, everyone's going to be involved there. Maybe let's put that one an hour just because the client likes to talk a lot. and they're going to want to have a lot of feedback. Then we're going to put in timing here for client feedback and review. This is really more so to have the client get an understanding of what their timeline is going to be. So usually there's no hours here. Sometimes I put half an hour for the account manager just in case they have any questions via email after the presentation. And pretty much, from here, we kind of repeat the process as far as, okay, client gives us their feedback. What do? We make the design edits. Then we do, we've got the copy edits. Based on the client's feedback, we do the SEO edits. And then we do an internal review. And then we make edits internally across all teams, design, SEO, copy, and you could put those in separate tasks, but here, because they're just doing edits internally, which are not going to be as extensive as client edits, I put them all on one line, and they can happen simultaneously. And then you've got the, after that, you got the client presentation round 2. So you can start to see how this becomes a longer project plan. Even though it's a simple project, it's got upwards of 25 tasks that we're looking at after all is said and done. So the client we do presentation round 2, they have their feedback rounds and revisions, and then we just repeat the same process again, because we said that we're going to be doing 2 rounds of revisions. Let's add that to the scope up here. That's something that you should review with your client usually at the beginning of a project. So we'll just put 2 rounds of revision. Sometimes they want 3, sometimes they only need 1. So you can just put that as part of your requirements. And then you deliver the final page. So now you've got your kind of steps, right? And now you can kind of go back up here and start entering all these hours. So we already did it in the first section here, so we're going to go ahead and just do it for the rest of them. So for the most part, project manager, aside from the client presentations, they're not going to have much input here, so we're just going to put them on the presentations. The account manager, they're going to be involved, but we'll add those in a sec. First, let's go through the design, since that is going to be most longest time. So we're going to put 4 hours here. They're not going to have any edits for copy, nothing for SEO, internal review. They're going to be part of that. That's going to be a half-hour meeting internally, and then any further edits that they have to make is going to be there. Then we have a client presentation, again, another hour. No hours for the feedback, and then just any final minor edits. Since the client's already seen it twice, we're just going to put an hour there for them. They don't do any of these, so it's a little bit tedious here as we're going through it. But ultimately, this is the job of the project manager to do all this work up front for the team, and then they will come in here, and like I mentioned in the video, we do close to 60-70% of the work, and then they'll come in here and tweak it. So we have another half hour here and deliver the final page. Let's just say this is a short meeting since it's the final one, and then we'll delete these since we don't need these tasks, and then we'll repeat here. So nothing for design, nothing for edits, nothing internal review. They'll do a half an hour meeting. We'll do that across the board because everyone is in a single meeting, and you can see how things start to come together here. And then we're just gonna do some of these so that we can see how the hours are totaling up. Client edits for account manager not involved. Client presentation, 1 hour. Everyone's got 1 hour here since it's a client presentation, and so on. So pretty much, so I'm not wasting anybody's time. I'm gonna just start entering these hours really quickly here. And before you know it, let's just summarize these here, just for all intents and purposes to have it filled out. Now you see what the totals are for each person. So this project is going to take 52 hours to do a web page, have it SEO optimized, including 2 rounds of revisions for the client and copywriting. And then what we can do is, depending on how your agency does it, if you do hourly rates or you do a blended rate, blended rate is great if the different roles don't have too much of a difference. But if you have hourly rates, you'll obviously want to multiply each total by whatever the rate is for that person. For this project, we're just going to do a blended rate of 125, which is pretty standard. Some agencies do more, some do less, but that's what we're going to do here. So the total here is
52.5 hours. So we're just gonna do 52.5 times that blended rate of 125. And that's your project cost right there. We're gonna just turn that into a currency. And now you can go to your client and say, okay, this project is gonna cost $6,500. And then, if they have a concern with that, you have a full task list here that shows how many tasks there are, what the different tasks are, what order they're happening in, and maybe the client says, well, we don't have budget for that, we only have budget for $5,000 to do this. So then you can say, okay, well, here are your options. We can make it not SEO optimized. Maybe you can provide us with the copy, or we can do one round of revision. So you start to have these options and be able to work with your client to show them the different opportunities they have to stay within budget, while also showing them all the work that it takes to go into this. One of the things that I skipped over is once you're done with this project plan, before you communicate the cost, you'll obviously want to get all of this approved by the different people on the team. So the account manager, the designer, the SEO person, and the copywriter, because they'll be able to look at this and say, well, actually, I don't need this many hours here on task number 2, or I need more hours on task number 10 because this client usually gives me a lot of feedback, so I'm anticipating a lot more design feedback. And you can really start to get a good idea of what the cost will be for the project. So that's how you price out your projects. As you can see, it's not as simple as ballparking a few numbers and just asking a few people how many hours they think it's going to take. It's really about getting into that level of detail and understanding how many hours is each individual task going to involve from each individual person on your team. And the best part about it is you don't have to do all of that by yourself. You involve your team in it, you ask them to help you with approving their hours and estimating how long things are going to take. And then at the end, depending on what the hourly rates are, you just sum those up. And if you have any operating costs or sales cost or overhead, you include those as well. Those will vary by agency, but at the end of the day, you can kind of see and grasp how to do this on your own. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to our videos and check out our channel for more digital marketing videos in the future.